just wanted to get on here and talk about some of the things that I learned in my recent trip to Costa Rica. I learned a lot, and I think I grew a lot as a person. And yeah, I just want, some of these things are more practical and some of them are a little bit more profound. So the first thing that I learned, or that, was kind of demonstrated to me, was that it's okay to be rained in, meaning like literal rain. It rained a lot while we were there, mostly in the late afternoon and evening. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to like take a literal rain check on things. And maybe it's actual rain that's getting in the way of you doing and going places and being active and being like productive or whatever. Or maybe it's a more metaphorical type of rain. But it's okay. It's okay to be rained in for a day or for a night, and you can still make the most of the time. And that kind of carries into the next thing that I learned, which is living in the present is accessible. A lot of the times it feels very inaccessible, or like it's kind of this thing that you're never going to really achieve, especially if you're living with anxiety that keeps you always either being regretful about the past or like future tripping and worrying about the what ifs and the shoulds and everything like that keeps you very much out of the current moment. But I was able to live in the present more than I have been in my life, probably. It's possible. It's possible to live in the moment. It's possible to be present and mindful with what you're doing. And it doesn't have to be like this long, drawn out, like mental, emotional journey towards mindfulness. Like, you can put it into practice now. I learned that the genuine Sophia, like me as a genuine person at my core, I learned that I still exist, partially because I was being more mindful, but I just kind of flipped back into feeling more, I felt more like myself than I have in so long on that trip. That was important for me to realize, because for a long time I didn't even really know or believe that the real Sophia like still existed. Like, I thought I was just kind of a collection of all of my problems and that they kind of buried my own values and my qualities and characteristics. I thought all of that was basically unreachable. I learned that the real Sophia, the real me, is still in there. And I'm sure the same is true for anybody that's watching this now that feels like they're very out of touch with themselves. Like, you're still in there. It just takes the right circumstances and the right mindset to sort of bring that out. I learned that movement can be joyful. This is a lesson that I've been trying to learn and relearn for a while now, is that movement is a really important part of life. It's not all of your life, but it is very important, and it can bring a lot of joy if it's used in the right ways. And we were able to have a pretty active trip in Costa Rica. We were able to swim, and we walked and hiked a lot, and we rode horses. Like, it was an active trip, and it was all very enjoyable. And I think I get a little bit of that joyful movement through my yoga practice, but this kind of took it to a more like adventurous level, which is what I was hoping for. So it definitely did help teach me the lesson that movement can be joyful. I learned that I can trust my own intuition about things. And I think this is a continuation again of just being more mindful of what felt good in the moment, or what would feel good in the moment, and not worrying so much about if it's like the perfect sort of plan, or if is like exactly like what the itinerary says or anything like that. Like, you can follow your own intuition about what to do and how to spend your time. And I think I was really able to do that on this trip more than I usually am, and it worked out okay. So it did prove to myself that like my intuition is still there and still worth connecting with and listening to. I learned that it's okay to go to bed early. So, I mean, kind of piggybacking off of the intuition thing, like if your body is telling you that it's time to go to sleep and that you've had an active day, then it doesn't matter if it's like 9 or 9:30 or even earlier than that. I was going to bed pretty early on this trip, but I think that's just because we were so active and we woke up pretty early, and we were reined in a lot of the time. Like, we pretty much like front loaded our day due to the weather, and did a lot of things in the morning and early afternoon, and kind of had the evening to really chill. I think that was good. And then by the time, like, you know, it got dark, I was pretty much ready to go to sleep, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to feel the pressure to stay awake past when your body is telling you to go to sleep. It's okay. It's okay to go to bed early. That doesn't make you lame, okay? I learned that language is a really incredible thing. Language has always really fascinated me. I can't think about it too much without my brain just like short-circuiting, because it's so complex. But it is so fascinating how you're able to communicate with other people, and there are things that are universal, like laughter. And that's another thing that I learned that humor is universal, and people who can't really communicate through language can communicate through humor a lot of the time. Like, humor and expression and body language and art and all of those things. Like, it's so cool when you're able to connect with somebody in that way, and kind of get to know a different side of them, even if you can't understand what they're literally saying. I think that's just so cool, and it's really, really awesome that certain things are like truly universal, humor being one of them. And yeah, it's just really fascinating to me, and it was really interesting to be a part of that. I'm already, like, I was already a really big animal lover. On this trip, I was able to see some really cool wildlife, and it just made it so much clearer how important animals are to any ecosystem. Like, we all already know that, but they just add so much to an environment. They just add such a layer of vitality and interest and activity to your surroundings, and it's just so important. I don't think it really matters if it's just like a bird or a squirrel or a monkey or a parrot or iguana. Like, their presence is just makes everything so much more interesting. And I learned that I can't really take them for granted. Like, the presence of wildlife and the presence of animals, you can't take it for granted, because it just makes life so much more interesting to share an ecosystem with those creatures. I learned just some last few points here. I learned that even though I think Jenga is a really stupid game, it does unite people. It's kind of similar to like the humor uniting people thing. There are some games unite people, like card games, board games, whatever. Like, we were able to play random games with strangers at the hostel, and it ended up being really fun. And it doesn't matter your background or where you came from or your nationality or class or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, we're all just playing this game together, and it was a really cool time of connection. And so even though we played Jenga a lot, and even though I hate that game, I do have a sort of respect for it now because of how much it connected me with people around me. I also learned that the sound of crashing waves is my favorite way to fall asleep. It's my favorite sound to fall asleep to. And so since I've been back, I've been playing like wave sounds on my phone to fall asleep to. And it's just the best. Like, there's just nothing. I mean, it's not like the real thing, but it's just the best way to fall asleep, in my opinion. I learned that in the United States, compared to a lot of other countries, specifically I'm comparing it to Costa Rica because that was my experience with it, but it was really clear to me how much we as an American society are obsessed with and so motivated by shame. And I can't really even put it to words more than that, but it was very clear to me that people in Costa Rica and in probably other countries, they don't live with a sort of internalized shame about things. And yeah, I mean, I wish I could put it into a more concrete way of saying it. But yeah, I just thought that was so interesting. And I guess I never really thought that it was something that was more unique to our society or in the kind of Western world. Yeah, I mean, it's bullshit, man. It's bullshit, man. And like, you don't have to. There's a way to live life without shame, and other people in other places of the world are doing that. And yeah, that just became really clear to me, and I thought that was super interesting. And it kind of goes along with the whole Pura Vida lifestyle, and which is one that I learned is worth pursuing because it extends to all aspects of your life. And if you're living a pure life, then you're living a life without shame and without judgment. And that's the whole goal here, like, that's my whole goal. And so I hope to continue the Pura Vida sort of lifestyle and have that be like my little motto, my little go-to phrase. I mean, I learned a lot on this trip, and I just wanted to share some of the highlights of it. If you haven't seen my vlog about the whole trip, go ahead and watch that because it's super fun. And yeah, you get to experience it with me. And if you're thinking about going to Costa Rica, I definitely recommend it. We stayed in Montezuma pretty much the whole time. Yeah, people were very, very sweet. I was very touched by how hospitable everybody was, and how it was just such a great place to just hit the reset button. And that's exactly what I needed. So yeah, anyway, hope you enjoy and hope you learned something.